Lena Myles stood in her small bedroom, zipping the last corner of her overnight bag, trying to steady the flutter in her chest. She kept telling herself it was excitement, not nerves, that made her hands tremble. The weekend trip with Caleb was supposed to help them reconnect, undo the strange distance that had crept between them over the last month. She wanted to believe this trip was a reset, a chance to breathe again. But beneath the hope, something colder moved quietly, like a warning she didn't want to hear. Her mother lingered in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes narrowed in that intuitive way mothers had. "You're sure about this?" she asked, voice low, careful, as if one wrong tone might push Lena away completely. "Caleb didn't tell you where you're staying, that doesn't bother you." Lena forced a small smile. "It's a surprise, he thinks I overthink everything, I'm trying to prove I don't." Her mother didn't return the smile. "Just check in when you get there, please." "I will." Lena hugged her quickly, using the motion to hide the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. She wanted this, needed it, to be fine. For weeks, Caleb had been slipping between moods, warm one moment and cold the next, but he kept assuring her he was just stressed. "Work stuff," he said. "Family pressure." And she believed him because loving him meant giving him the benefit of the doubt. Caleb's car honked from the driveway. Lena rushed down the stairs, her heart catching when she saw him leaning against the doorframe of his SUV. He looked effortlessly charming, dark hair, steady posture, that practiced half-smile that once made her feel chosen. Today, though, the smile didn't quite reach his eyes. "You're late," he muttered as she approached. Lena blinked. "By 2 minutes." He shrugged, climbed into the driver's seat, and she pushed away the sting in her chest as she followed. Once they were on the road, Caleb turned on the radio and kept his gaze forward. The silence between them stretched, different from the comfortable quiet they once shared. Now it felt like a wall. "So," she tried gently, "where are we actually going?" "A place near the lake, you'll like it." His tone was clipped final. "Which lake?" Caleb's fingers tightened around the steering wheel. "Lena, can you just trust me for once? Not everything needs to be questioned." The sharpness in his voice made her shrink back. She looked out the window, letting the passing trees blur into a dull green smear. She didn't want to fight. Not now, not before the weekend even started. So she nodded, pretending his tone didn't bruise her. Minutes passed, then unexpectedly Caleb reached over and touched her knee. "Sorry," he murmured. "I didn't sleep well, I shouldn't have snapped." Relief softened her shoulders. "It's okay." But it was. Something had changed in him, she felt it, though she had no name for it. He was unpredictable now, switching between tenderness and tension with no warning. Still, she clung to the hope that once they arrived, once they relaxed, he'd be the Caleb she remembered. The scenery shifted as they drove deeper into the county, fewer houses, thicker woods, long stretches of road where the GPS lost signal. Lena tried not to notice. She tried not to notice that Caleb kept glancing at his phone, not for directions, but as though he were waiting for a message he didn't want her to see. She tried not to notice the way his jaw tightened every time she moved, as if her smallest action disrupted something he was trying to control. "We're almost there," he finally said, turning down an unmarked gravel road. Lena's breath hitched. This didn't look like a path to a resort. This looked like the middle of nowhere. But Caleb didn't explain, and she didn't ask. "Not yet." Ahead, through the trees, she saw the faint outline of a cabin, lonely, silent, waiting. The weekend had begun. And by the time the sun set, nothing in her life would be the same. Lena stepped out of the SUV slowly, gravel crunching under her shoes as she stared at the cabin Caleb had driven them to. It looked abandoned, wood darkened by years of weather, windows clouded, porch sagging. Nothing about it suggested romance. Nothing suggested a planned getaway. The air felt colder here, as if the trees themselves whispered warnings through their branches. Caleb slammed the car door and stretched. "Come on," he said, grabbing the bags before she could. "It's nicer inside." Nicer inside. She wanted to believe him, but her chest tightened as she followed him up the steps. The cabin sat deep in the woods, far from the road, the lake barely visible through gaps between the trees. Even the birds seemed quiet here. When Caleb pushed the door open, a faint smell of dust drifted out. He flicked a switch, nothing happened. "Power's weird out here," he muttered. "It'll kick in." Lena hesitated. "We're staying here. I thought you booked a resort." Caleb dropped the bags, irritation flickering across his face. "Plans changed. My cousin owns this place. Private, quiet, no crowds. You said you wanted time alone." "I didn't mean this alone, Caleb." He exhaled loudly and moved past her, brushing her shoulder in a way that felt more like a shove. Can you just relax for once? Everything doesn't have to be an argument. Lena bit her lip. She didn't want to fight, not again. And he looked tired, truly tired, shadows under his eyes, movements stiff. So she nodded, pretending everything was fine. Inside, the cabin was sparsely furnished. A couch, a wooden table, a dusty rug, and a fireplace full of old ash. Caleb opened a window to let in air, and a gust of cold wind swept through the room, rattling a loose shutter. "It's different," Lena said softly, trying to keep her voice neutral. He didn't answer. He was already searching his pockets for something, a phone, no, 2 phones. She recognized his usual one, but the second was unfamiliar, old, scratched, and turned off. He shoved both into his jacket quickly, as though forgetting she could see. "Do you have signal?" she asked. Caleb checked, "Not here." She lifted her own phone. No bars, no Wi-Fi, nothing. "So we're completely cut off." "That's the point, Lena," he said sharply. "We needed this." Maybe he was right. Maybe this was what they needed, space, quiet time. But the silence here didn't feel peaceful. It felt planned, heavy, intentional. She pushed open the back door and stepped onto the porch overlooking the lake. The water stretched out like a sheet of dark glass, untouched and eerily still. Far in the distance, mountains rose like sleeping giants. It should have been beautiful, but she felt a chill crawl across her spine. Caleb joined her, slipping his arm around her waist. "See, it's not so bad." His tone was softer now, almost gentle, and for a moment she relaxed into him. For a moment she believed he was simply trying. Maybe stress really had twisted him up. Maybe he truly wanted to fix things. But when she looked at him, his eyes were distant, calculating, troubled somewhere far beyond the lake. "What's on your mind?" she asked. He paused, nothing, just tired. Lena knew that wasn't true, but she let it go, leaning into the railing as the sky deepened to amber. If only she could enjoy the moment without questions pressing against her ribs. Inside, Caleb's phone buzzed, the old one, even with no signal. He jolted, rushed to grab it, and turned his body away from her as he checked the screen. She saw the tension in his shoulders, the way he stiffened. "Everything okay?" she called. Caleb forced a smile. "Yeah, just a reminder I forgot to turn off." But he pocketed the phone quickly, almost fearfully. As Lena watched him, unease coiled inside her, slow, inevitable, undeniable. Something here was wrong. And the cabin, silent and waiting, seemed to know it. The sun dipped behind the trees faster than Lena expected, leaving the cabin wrapped in a thick, uneasy darkness. By the time she lit a few candles she found in a drawer, the living room looked like an old photograph, dim, grainy, full of shadows that moved when she blinked. Caleb paced near the window, phone in hand, pretending he was checking for a signal even though they both knew none existed. "You're restless," Lena said quietly, placing 2 bowls of soup on the table. "Come sit, you haven't eaten all day." Caleb didn't move. "I'm fine." "You don't seem fine." His jaw tightened, a flicker of annoyance rising. "Can we not do this right now? I'm just tired." She swallowed and nodded, taking her seat alone. The soup tasted bland, metallic even, but maybe that was just her nerves. She watched Caleb finally sink onto the couch, head in his hands. The soft candlelight made the room feel too intimate, too exposed, like the truth could seep out from the walls if she stared too long. After a few minutes, he joined her at the table without a word. He picked up the spoon, stirred the soup once, then set it down with a sharp clank. "This tastes weird." "It's canned," she said. "It's all the cabin had." Caleb pushed the bowl away. "You know I hate canned food." Lena blinked at him. "You never said that." "Yes, I did," he snapped. "You just don't listen." The words cut deeper than they should have. She sat back, gripping the edge of the table. This was supposed to be a calm night, their first step toward fixing what had gone wrong. But instead of softening, he seemed to be unraveling, thread by thread, mood by mood. She tried again. "Caleb, if something is bothering you." "Why do you always do this?" he said, voice rising. "You poke and push and act like you're trying to help, but you're really just checking up on me." "I'm not, You just don't trust me," he interrupted, eyes sharp in the low light. "Admit it." Lena froze. The accusation was absurd and yet familiar. Another mood swing, another spike of paranoia. She kept her voice steady. "I do trust you, but lately you've been on edge and I don't know why. I'm trying to understand." Caleb laughed once, humorless cold. You're hiding something, I can feel it. Her heart stuttered. What, Caleb, I'm not hiding anything. Yes, you are, he insisted. You've been distant, secretive, checking your phone every 5 seconds like someone else waiting for you. That's not true. He leaned closer, eyes narrowing. Then who keeps texting you late at night? No one, I show you my phone all the time. That doesn't mean anything, he muttered, standing abruptly. He began pacing again, running a hand through his hair, breathing hard. God, I knew this trip was a mistake. Lena stood too, tears burning behind her eyes. A mistake. I came because I wanted us to work. Well, maybe we're past that. The room felt colder. The candle flame flickered violently, throwing shaken shadows along the walls. She stepped toward him, voice trembling. Caleb, please talk to me. What's going on? He stopped pacing. For a moment he looked at her, really looked, and something vulnerable flashed across his face. Fear, guilt. She didn't know, it disappeared too quickly. Forget it, he said, softer but no calmer. I just need space. He grabbed his jacket and stepped onto the porch, letting the door slam behind him. The sudden silence punched through the cabin like a gust of wind. Lena sank onto the couch, heart pounding. Every instinct inside her screamed that something had cracked open tonight, something he couldn't hide anymore, and she no longer knew how to ignore. Minutes passed, then an hour. Caleb didn't return. When she finally stood to check the porch, she noticed something on the floor near the window, something he must have dropped during his outburst. His second phone, the one he shouldn't have had. Lena picked it up, hand trembling, knowing this discovery was the beginning of everything that would come undone next. The cabin felt too quiet after Caleb stormed outside, leaving behind only the fading echo of the slammed door. Lena stood in the dim candlelight, her breathing uneven as she stared at the second phone resting in her palm. It was heavier than she expected, cold, scratched, and humming faintly with a low battery warning. She knew she shouldn't. She knew this crossed a line, but something in her chest whispered that the line had already been crossed long before tonight. Slowly, she pressed the power button. The screen lit up immediately, no password required. That alone sent a chill down her spine. Caleb guarded his devices like locked diaries, so why was this one wide open? A single notification glowed at the top. Unknown, you said you'd handle it before the weekend. Lena's breath caught. She tapped the message thread. Dozens of texts filled the screen, aggressive, impatient, some outright threatening. You're behind schedule. Don't make me come find you. We're running out of time, fix it. She better not be a problem. Her vision blurred for a moment, heart racing so fast she felt dizzy. Were they talking about her? A fresh message appeared while she was still processing the last ones. Unknown, if she finds out, it's on you. Lena's hand trembled so violently she almost dropped the phone. She blinked at the message, trying to make sense of it. What could Caleb possibly be involved in? Who was threatening him? What was he supposed to handle? Did he bring her here to protect her? Or to keep her quiet? She scrolled further up. More fragments, more hints. Last drop didn't go clean. Don't mess this one up like before. I'm not covering for you again. Her throat tightened, mind racing. Caleb had never mentioned anything about dangerous people, never hinted at money drops or threats. The Caleb she thought she knew would never. The cabin door creaked suddenly. Lena froze. The phone slipped from her grip and bounced onto the couch cushions. She snatched it up just as Caleb stepped inside, his face pale from the cold or from something else entirely. What are you doing? He asked. His voice was calm, too calm, a deceptive softness that made her stomach twist. Lena swallowed, hiding the phone behind her back. Nothing, just waiting for you to come back. Caleb looked her over with slow, narrowed eyes. Where's my jacket? He asked. She blinked. Your jacket, you wore it outside. No, he said, stepping closer. My other jacket. He meant the one he'd dropped the phone from. Her pulse stuttered. I didn't see it. He studied her expression, searching, calculating. The tension in the room thickened like fog. Then, in a single swift motion, he walked past her and scanned the couch. Lena's grip tightened behind her back. She forced herself to breathe normally. Caleb lifted a cushion, then another, lips pressing into a thin line. Must have left it on the porch. She nodded quickly, too quickly. He turned to her. You hungry? The shift in tone was jarring, like someone flipping a switch in his mind. She tried to smile, though her legs felt weak. Not really. Caleb watched her again, that unreadable look in his eyes. Then he moved toward the kitchen, grabbing a bottle of water and taking a long drink. Lena slipped the phone into her back pocket, heart pounding at the small victory. But terror settled deeper. She couldn't ask him outright. She couldn't confront him, not with messages like those, not when she had no idea what he was capable of now. You okay? He asked suddenly, turning around. She jumped slightly. Yeah, just tired. Caleb nodded slowly. We should get some sleep, big day tomorrow. Big day, she echoed. Yeah, his smile was small, tense. We both need clarity. Clarity, the word made her shiver. He walked toward the bedroom. Lena remained still, listening to his footsteps fade. When she finally exhaled, she reached into her pocket and touched the phone again. Something dangerous was attached to Caleb. And whoever had been texting him, they weren't finished yet. As she turned off the candles, a new message lit up the hidden phone, its glow sharp in the darkness. Unknown, I'm on my way. And Lena knew the night was far from over. Lena barely slept. Every creak of the old cabin felt sharper, louder, as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. Caleb fell asleep quickly, too quickly, turning away from her, exhaling slow and steady like someone escaping into unconsciousness rather than resting. She kept her eyes open, clutching the thin blanket, replaying the last message on the hidden phone. I'm on my way. By dawn, Lena's nerves were stretched thin. The sun had barely touched the tops of the trees when she slipped out of bed and into the living room. Caleb's second phone was still tucked into her pocket, its battery low but not dead. She turned it on again, hoping the sender hadn't moved yet, hoping it had been an empty threat. But a new message appeared instantly. Unknown, half an hour. Her breath hitched. Half an hour until he got here. Half an hour until everything changed. A floorboard groaned behind her. She spun around. Caleb stood in the doorway of the bedroom, squinting at her, hair disheveled but eyes alert, too alert for someone who'd just woken up. Why are you up so early? He asked. Lena swallowed, couldn't sleep. He stepped closer, studying her face. You look nervous. I'm just tired. Caleb's gaze dipped to her pockets. Lena instinctively covered them with her hands, forcing a casual gesture. Cold, she said quickly. I put them there to keep warm. He didn't respond, but she saw it, that flicker of suspicion tightening his jaw. A sharp knock shattered the silence. Lena froze. Caleb stiffened. Another knock, heavier this time. Her pulse roared in her ears. Half an hour, the message had said. It hadn't even been 10 minutes. Caleb turned toward the door, but not with confusion, with resignation, like he already knew who was on the other side. Don't say a word, he muttered, low and dangerous. Lena stepped back, heart hammering. Caleb, who is that? He didn't answer. Instead, he moved to the door and unlocked it slowly. The man who stood outside was nothing like she expected. Mid-40s, broad shoulders, shaved head, wearing a heavy jacket that looked expensive. Not a lost hiker, not a neighbor from another cabin. His expression was cold, assessing. And he didn't look surprised to see Caleb. Where the hell have you been? The man asked flatly as he pushed his way inside, brushing past Caleb. Caleb closed the door behind him, jaw clenched. We're on schedule. No, the man said, eyes darting to Lena immediately. You're behind, way behind. Lena felt her blood turn to ice. She stepped backward until her legs hit the edge of the couch. Caleb moved to stand between them. I told you I'd handle it. You didn't, the man replied sharply. That's why I'm here. Caleb exhaled, almost shaking. You shouldn't have shown up, not when she's here. The man's eyes lingered on Lena, studying her with unsettling precision. She's part of it now, whether you like it or not. Part of what? Lena whispered. Neither man answered. The stranger walked further into the room, glancing around at the half-lit cabin, the untouched soup bowls, the shadows still lingering from a night of tension. You didn't tell her? He asked Caleb. Caleb shot him a warning look. It's under control. It doesn't look under control, the man said, gaze settling on the edge of her pocket, the very place she hid the second phone. Lena forced her hands down slowly, trying not to draw attention. Caleb followed the man's gaze, his expression hardened. Stay away from her. The man smirked. You think you can protect her from this, from what you owe? Lena's heart dropped. Oh. Caleb owed this man something dangerous enough to bring him deep into the woods, to a cabin with no power, no signal, no witnesses. I'm not leaving until we settle this, the man said. Both of you are coming with me. Over my dead, Caleb started. But the man cut him off with a small, chilling smile. Let's hope it doesn't come to that. Before Caleb could react, he reached into his jacket. Lena gasped. The situation was no longer about secrets. It was about survival. And the cabin door behind them was still closed. Locked, trapping all three inside. Maya stood frozen in the narrow living room, the crackling fireplace filling the silence Ethan refused to break. The man who had pulled her close all weekend now stared at the floor like a child caught stealing. His shoulders slumped, fists opening and closing as if he couldn't decide whether to run or finally face the storm he had created. The thudding in her ears grew louder. She wasn't sure if it was her heart or the warning her instincts had been screaming since the moment the stranger came to the door. Ethan, Maya said, her voice trembling despite her efforts to steady it. Look at me. He didn't. Instead, he dragged both hands over his face, exhaled shakily, then moved to sit on the edge of the couch. His elbows rested on his knees, head hanging so low she could barely see his expression. I never wanted you to know this way, he whispered. The words sent heat across her skin, not the warmth of truth, but the sting of something dangerous being pulled into the open. She kept her distance, arms wrapped tight around herself, aware that whatever Ethan was about to confess would fracture everything she thought she knew. Then why was he here? She asked. She didn't say the man's name, she didn't have to. The image of him, tall, tense, eyes darting like someone scanning for threats, was etched in her mind. Why did he look at me like I wasn't supposed to be here? Ethan finally lifted his head. His eyes were red, not from tears but from restraint, as if he had been holding back the truth for longer than she could guess. Because you weren't, he said. The room tilted. She grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. What does that mean? Ethan swallowed hard and forced himself to continue. Maya, I didn't bring you here for the reasons I told you. The cabin isn't mine. It belongs to him, Daniel. The name hit her like cold water. The man at the door, she whispered. Ethan nodded slowly. He and we've been working together, or we were supposed to be. I thought I could get it all done before anyone got hurt. Her skin prickled. Get what done? He stood abruptly, pacing the length of the room like he was trying to outrun his own words. I owed him money, a lot, more than I could ever pay back. He gave me two choices, disappear or help him with one job that would settle the debt. Her pulse spiked. What kind of job? Ethan looked at her then, really looked at her, and she felt something inside her sink. Because his expression wasn't the face of someone fearing punishment. It was the face of someone fearing forgiveness he didn't deserve. A setup, he said. A way to lure someone to the cabin, someone Daniel needed leverage on, someone who wasn't supposed to be you. The air left her lungs. Ethan, what are you saying? He stopped pacing, leaning against the wall as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. I picked you because I thought you'd be safe. I thought Daniel wouldn't care if I changed the plan just this once. But when he saw you, he realized you weren't who he expected. And that means things just got worse, for both of us. Maya took a step back. The cabin that once felt remote now felt sealed, suffocating, a place designed to hide screams rather than memories. So what happens now? She whispered. Ethan closed his eyes. Now I have to choose whose side I'm on. And somewhere outside, just beyond the frosted window, a shadow moved, slow, deliberate, waiting for the choice he would make. For a few long seconds, neither of them moved. The only sound in the cabin was the faint groan of wind slipping between the wooden planks, brushing against the windows like cold fingertips. Maya's breath remained shallow, her eyes fixed on the shifting shadow outside. Ethan looked toward it too, and for the first time since she'd known him, she saw pure fear, raw, unshielded, uncalculated. He's not supposed to be back so soon, Ethan whispered. Maya's hands curled instinctively into fists. You said he wasn't expecting me at all. He wasn't, Ethan said, voice tightening. That's why he wants to fix the mistake before it becomes a problem, before anyone else finds out I changed the plan. And by fix, Maya said, you mean? I don't know, Ethan cut in, but the tremor in his voice told her he did. He just didn't want to say it. The shadow outside moved again, closer this time, passing beneath the porch light with a faint glint of metal at its side. Maya stepped back, and Ethan grabbed her wrist without thinking, pulling her behind him. Don't, she hissed, yanking her arm away. You don't get to play protector now. The sting in her words made Ethan flinch, but he quickly steadied himself. Maya, listen to me. I didn't want any of this to touch you. I thought, if I brought someone Daniel didn't know, someone not connected to his world, it would buy me time, just time, enough to find a way out. Her laugh came out hollow. So you tricked me into being your shield, that's what I was worth to you. No, he snapped. You were the only person who trusted me enough to say yes, and that's the part I hate the most. Outside, the porch steps creaked, heavy, deliberate. They both froze. Ethan grabbed the fireplace poker, gripping it so tightly the metal squeaked. Maya scanned the room, desperate for anything she could use as a weapon. Her eyes landed on the glass lamp on the side table. She didn't hesitate. She unplugged it and held it like a hammer. You shouldn't be holding anything, Ethan whispered. If Daniel comes in, let me handle it. Handle it, she said sharply. You can't even handle telling the truth. Ethan's jaw clenched. I'm trying now. It's too late. The doorknob rattled, once, twice, then stopped. Maya felt her heart climb into her throat. Ethan raised the poker higher, stepping in front of her out of instinct, but she shifted sideways, refusing to let him block her view again. Maya, Ethan murmured, if he gets in, we need to work together. Funny, she whispered, because right now you're the bigger threat to me than he is. That hit him harder than any blow Daniel could deliver. He stepped back, lowering the poker just slightly, enough for doubt to slip into his posture. And in that sliver of hesitation, everything shifted. A loud crash erupted from the back of the cabin, glass exploding, wood cracking, and both Maya and Ethan spun toward the sound. A figure slipped through the broken window, boots crunching on shards. Daniel's silhouette stood tall against the moonlight seeping through the shattered frame, a knife glinting in his right hand. Ethan raised the poker again, but Daniel didn't flinch. Instead, he smirked. Well, Daniel said, his voice low and controlled. Looks like someone forgot the rules. Maya tightened her grip on the lamp, pulse pounding so violently she felt it in her teeth. I told you, Daniel continued, stepping deeper into the room. You don't get to make substitutions, Ethan, and you definitely don't get to improvise. Ethan positioned himself between them again, but Maya sidestepped, refusing to be hidden or surrendered. Daniel noticed, his smile widened. Oh, he said, so she fights. The three of them stood in a tense, triangular standoff. No trust, no alliances, just desperation and anger swirling thick enough to choke on. The fragile thread holding them together finally snapped. And the night they turned on each other truly began. The moment Daniel lunged forward, everything shattered into motion. Ethan swung the poker, catching Daniel's forearm just enough to make him recoil, and Maya didn't wait. She hurled the glass lamp at Daniel with every ounce of strength she had. It exploded against his shoulder, shards scattering across the wooden floor. Daniel staggered, cursing, and that was all the opening Maya needed. Run, Ethan shouted. She didn't look back. She sprinted toward the front door, yanking it open so violently it slammed into the wall. The cold night air hit her like a slap, but she welcomed it. Her bare feet slapped against the porch boards as she leapt into the darkness. Behind her, she heard a struggle, grunting, something heavy crashing into furniture, and then Ethan's voice, raw and breaking. Maya, go. She didn't hesitate. She darted into the forest, branches grabbing at her clothes like desperate hands. The moonlight cut in shards through the trees, but the ground beneath was uneven, roots snaking across the dirt like traps waiting for her to fall. Her breath tore through her lungs, but she kept moving, kept pushing, kept praying her legs wouldn't give out. Then she heard him. Daniel. His voice echoed through the dark, chilling and confident. You can't outrun me. Maya's pulse spiked violently. She forced herself faster. Leaves whipped her cheeks. Her arms pumped, her lungs burned, but fear sharpened her senses. Every crack of a branch behind her made her feet strike the ground harder. A twig snapped far too close. She veered left, nearly tripping over a fallen log. Her hands hit the dirt as she scrambled back to her feet. She didn't dare look behind her. She didn't need to. She could feel Daniel closing in, his presence like a shadow crawling up her spine. Maya, Ethan's voice called from somewhere farther back, strained and panicked. Keep going, don't stop. She swallowed, throat thick with tears, and pushed deeper into the woods. But the forest grew denser. The moonlight thinned. The air felt heavier, colder. Maya's steps slowed despite her will commanding her otherwise. She clutched a tree trunk for balance as dizziness swept through her. That's when her foot landed on something slick, a moss-covered root, and she fell hard, her knee striking a rock. Pain shot up her leg, forcing a cry from her throat. She tried to stand, her knee buckled. No, 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 she whispered, gripping the earth to steady herself. Crunch. A slow, deliberate footstep. Then another's. The sound of leaves shifting under a heavy boot. Maya's breath locked in her chest. She pressed herself against a tree, crawling backward in the dirt, desperate to make herself smaller, invisible. Daniel emerged between the trees, his silhouette monstrous in the faint moonlight. His cheek was bleeding from the broken lamp, and his eyes were two pinpoints of fury. End of the trail, he said quietly. Maya's trembling fingers found a broken branch beside her. She clutched it like a spear, though it shook violently in her grip. Stay away from me. Daniel stepped closer, unbothered. You should have stayed in the cabin. Running only makes it worse. For you, she said, surprising herself with the steadiness in her voice. Daniel's smirk faded. He lunged. Maya thrust the branch forward blindly. It struck his shoulder, not enough to injure him, but enough to slow him for half a second. Half a second, she used to crawl backward and force herself to her feet despite the screaming pain in her knee. She ran again, limping, gasping. Daniel cursed and chased her, crashing through brush with terrifying speed. But then another sound cut through the chaos. A shout. Ethan. Daniel, stop. For the first time, Daniel hesitated, just a fraction, just enough. Maya limped toward the direction of Ethan's voice, hope piercing the fear for a heartbeat. But the forest twisted around her, unfamiliar and disorienting. Ethan's voice grew louder, then suddenly, sharply, it cut off. Silence fell. Thick, suffocating, unnatural. And Maya realized, with a coldness that hollowed her chest, that whatever waited in that silence would change everything. Silence swallowed the forest until Maya heard something impossible, footsteps moving not toward her but away, deeper into the trees. She froze, chest heaving, listening as the rhythm faded. Daniel wasn't following her anymore. Something else had pulled him off course, something that made even a man like him change direction. Maya pushed forward, limping through the thicket until the trees thinned and a faint glow appeared ahead. Not moonlight, warmer, steadier. A house. Small, old, and isolated, with a single lamp glowing behind a curtained window. For one brief moment, hope fluttered in her chest like a dying bird trying to rise again. She approached slowly, terrified Daniel might reappear at any second. But her knee buckled again and the pain forced her hand. She needed help, even if danger waited on the other side of that door. She climbed the short steps, gripping the railing, and knocked softly at first, then harder when no response came. The lock clicked, the door eased open, and a woman gray-haired, wrapped in a faded robe, eyes wide with concern instead of suspicion, stood framed in the doorway. For a second Maya thought she might collapse from relief. But then the woman's expression shifted, her gaze flicking to the woods behind Maya as if expecting someone else. Please, Maya whispered, voice cracking. I need help, someone's trying to kill me. The woman hesitated only a moment before stepping aside. Get in, quickly. Her tone was firm, urgent, like she already understood more than she should. Maya limped inside, and the door shut behind her with a finality that sent a shiver through her bones. The living room smelled of old wood and something herbal, like dried lavender. A fire crackled low in the hearth, casting flickering orange shadows across the walls. Maya sank onto a floral couch, dizzy with exhaustion. The woman took a seat across from her, studying her with an intensity that felt unsettling despite her kindness. Did he follow you? The woman asked quietly. I don't think so, Maya whispered, though she wasn't sure of anything anymore. The woman nodded slowly, her fingers tightening around the mug she had picked up from the table. Men like that don't usually give up. Maya stiffened. You know him. The woman's eyes softened with something like regret. I know his type, and I know what fear looks like on a girl's face. She rose, walked to the window, and pulled the curtain back just an inch. Her shoulders tensed immediately. We don't have long. Maya's stomach dropped. You see him. The woman didn't answer directly. There's a shed out back. We need to move before he circles around. He'll search every house until he finds what he thinks he owns. Cold dread spilled through Maya's veins. Why are you helping me? The woman finally met her eyes. Because once I was you. The words hit Maya harder than the fall, harder than the fear twisting through her ribs. She stared at the woman, suddenly aware that this stranger carried her own history of running, hiding, surviving. But before Maya could speak, a sharp thud rattled the front door, slow, deliberate, unmistakably human. The woman's face paled. "He's here," the woman whispered, barely moving her lips. The house seemed to shrink around them, every shadow stretching tighter, every creak in the floorboards screaming danger. She grabbed Maya's arm, pulling her toward the back hallway. "No talking, no lights, stay close to me." Maya followed, heart hammering, as another knock shook the door, lighter this time, almost patient, as though Daniel already knew exactly where they were going. The shed behind the woman's house was little more than a wooden shell with gaps between the boards. Maya followed silently, her leg throbbing with every step, adrenaline masking the ache. The woman pushed a loose plank aside, revealing a shadowy interior dimly lit by a small, lantern-like bulb dangling from a frayed wire. The air smelled of dust and damp earth. Maya's pulse rattled in her ears. "Sit," the woman whispered, pointing to a crate, "and don't make a sound." Maya sank down carefully, glancing at the woman who knelt beside her, unfastening a small bag and pulling out a folded piece of paper. Her hands shook slightly, but her eyes were sharp. "You need to know," the woman said, her voice low but urgent. "Everything he's told you, it's only half the story." Maya's throat tightened. She nodded, heart hammering. "Tell me, please." The woman handed her the paper. It was a list: names, dates, locations. At the bottom, one name stood out, Daniel S. Next to it, a note written in shaky, almost frantic handwriting. "The one who can't be trusted, keep her safe." "What is this?" Maya whispered. The woman's eyes darted toward the shed's door. "Your boyfriend, he isn't who you think he is. The man you trusted brought you into a world he barely understood himself. Daniel isn't just a creditor. He's controlling, dangerous, and he's not alone." Maya's stomach dropped. So everything he said about owing money the job. "Exaggerated," the woman interrupted, shaking her head. "He needed you to believe it. He didn't think you'd see through the lies until it was too late, but he underestimated you." Maya's hands gripped the paper tightly. "Why me? Why did he bring me here?" The woman paused. "Because he loved you in a twisted way. He wanted to protect you while he tried to fix things, but protection isn't always safe. And secrets have a way of destroying people. He never thought you'd discover the second phone. He never thought you'd realize how deep the danger was." A shiver ran down Maya's spine. "So he lied to keep me calm." The woman nodded. "Not just that, he lied because he didn't want to admit the truth, that Daniel is merciless, that any mistake could cost lives, that even the people closest to him might not survive." Maya's mind spun. "Even Ethan." "Yes," the woman said softly. "He's in over his head. He thought he could manage Daniel and shield you, but Daniel doesn't forgive mistakes, and he doesn't wait for mercy." A sudden sound, a branch snapping outside, made both women tense. Maya's breath hitched. "Is he here?" The woman shook her head. "Not yet, but he's close. You need to know the truth before it happens. Ethan never wanted you involved, but once you were here, once Daniel knew, there was no turning back." Maya's hands trembled as she read more of the paper. There were photographs, too. Ethan handing envelopes, meeting shadowed figures, exchanging small packages. Evidence she had never seen, proof that confirmed every terrifying message, every manipulated word, every moment of fear. She looked up at the woman. "So, what do I do?" The woman's eyes were steady, almost fierce. "You survive, and you make him face the truth he never wanted revealed. Ethan can't hide it anymore. He must decide, will he fight for you honestly, or will he let the consequences destroy everything?" Maya swallowed hard, the weight of everything settling on her shoulders. She realized that this night, this truth had changed her forever. Outside, a faint rustle indicated movement approaching. Shadows stretched across the shed walls. The woman placed a hand on Maya's shoulder. "It's time," she whispered. "He's coming, and you're not the same girl who walked into the cabin." Maya nodded, heart pounding, gripping the evidence like a lifeline. She had the truth now, and there was no turning back. The next confrontation was inevitable, and Ethan would finally have to answer for everything. Maya felt the paper crumple slightly in her hands as she and the woman crept toward the back of the shed. Outside, the night had thickened into an oppressive blanket, swallowing sound and movement. Every branch that snapped in the distance made her jump. Every gust of wind whispered danger. She could hear Daniel's boots crunching faintly over fallen leaves, precise, deliberate, almost mocking in their rhythm. "This way," the woman whispered, pointing to a narrow trail that wound toward the forest's edge. "Ethan doesn't know we're here yet, but he'll realize soon." Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. Her knee throbbed painfully with each step, but the adrenaline coursing through her veins kept her moving. She could barely think, barely breathe, but one thought drove her forward. She had to confront Ethan. She needed the truth, and she needed him to face the consequences of his lies before it was too late. They emerged from the tree line into a small clearing. The woman stopped abruptly, pulling Maya behind a bush. Ahead, the cabin was visible, its windows faintly lit, shadows flickering against the glass. And there, moving inside, was Ethan. He was pacing near the fireplace, hands running through his hair, face pale, eyes darting like a man who knew the walls were closing in. Maya's stomach twisted. "He looks broken," she whispered. "Fear and guilt," the woman said. "He's realizing how much he underestimated Daniel and you." Maya's fists clenched. "I have to face him," she said. The woman shook her head, her grip firm on Maya's arm. "Not yet. First, we need to distract Daniel." Maya nodded reluctantly. Her mind was a whirlwind, anger, fear, confusion, but she forced herself to focus. The woman handed her a small flare, its red glow illuminating Maya's trembling fingers. "When I throw this into the clearing, he'll think it's an attempt to escape. That's your signal." Maya's pulse thundered in her ears as the woman stepped forward, hurling the flare toward the cabin. The night ignited with a crimson glow. Daniel froze, turning toward the sudden light. "Run," Maya whispered to herself, sprinting across the clearing toward the cabin. Daniel snapped his head toward her, shouting, "What the—" But the flare's brilliance masked her movement. She reached the cabin's side door, her hands shaking as she yanked it open. Ethan spun around at the sound, eyes widening in shock. "Maya," his voice cracked. Relief and panic mingled, making her chest ache. "We need to talk," she said, stepping inside, ignoring the tremor in her voice. "Everything now." He hesitated, glancing toward the flickering shadows outside, then back at her. "You don't understand if he—" "I understand enough," Maya cut him off, voice rising. "I know about the phone, I know about the messages, I know what you were trying to hide, and I know it put both of us in danger." Ethan ran a hand over his face. "Maya, I—" "Don't," she shouted. "Not another lie, not another excuse. You brought me here under the guise of love, and it was manipulation. Everything you told me was half the truth, and I trusted you." Ethan sank into a chair, head in his hands. The confession she had forced from him moments ago, the truth he never wanted revealed, finally broke the dam. I thought I could protect you," he said, voice barely audible. "I thought if I controlled it, I could keep you safe. I didn't realize how deep it went, how far Daniel would go." Maya's eyes filled with tears. "Safe? Ethan, I've been running through the woods, hiding in sheds, wondering if I'd make it out alive." He lifted his head, his eyes red, haunted, broken. "I know, and I failed you." The sound of crashing outside made them both tense. Daniel had returned, or he had never left. The tension in the room became unbearable, like the air itself was pressing down. Maya took a deep breath, her resolve hardening. "It ends tonight," she said quietly but firmly. "No more lies, no more running. We face this, together or apart, but I'm done hiding." Ethan nodded slowly, swallowing hard. The weight of truth and consequence pressed down on them both, sharp and unforgiving. Outside, the wind carried a low, menacing growl through the trees. The night wasn't over. It was about to unravel everything. Everything they thought they knew, everything they thought they controlled. And neither of them would emerge the same. The forest was quiet, almost unnaturally so, as the first pale light of dawn filtered through the trees. Maya sat on the edge of the clearing, knees drawn to her chest, shaking. The adrenaline that had carried her through the night had burned itself out, leaving her hollow and trembling. Around her, the remnants of chaos were scattered. Broken branches, a discarded flare, the faint traces of footprints that told of a chase, a confrontation, and a night that had felt endless. Ethan knelt beside her, silent, his face streaked with grime and tears. For hours, they had hidden, fought, and finally faced the truths that neither of them wanted to confront, and now the exhaustion had settled like a weight pressing on both their chests. "It's over," Ethan whispered, though his voice lacked conviction. Maya shook her head slowly. Over? Her eyes swept the forest, then the cabin far behind them, still standing but scarred by the events of the night. Over isn't the word I'd use. Nothing is over, not really. He looked at her, a mix of guilt and relief twisting his features. I never meant for it to go this far. I know, she said, her voice quieter now, almost a whisper. I know you didn't, but you lied, you manipulated me, Ethan. You put me in danger, and you let Daniel everything he did. Ethan flinched, but there was no denying it. The truth was raw, unshakable, and it pressed down on both of them like a stone. He swallowed hard, voice breaking. I thought I was protecting you. I thought I could fix it before it hurt you. Maya's lips trembled as she looked away, focusing on the dawn spilling light through the trees. Sometimes protection isn't enough, she murmured. Sometimes it's just another way to control. The woman from the shed emerged quietly from the tree line, her gray robe catching the first golden rays of sunlight. She approached slowly, carrying a blanket and a bottle of water. Her expression was calm but watchful, like someone who had survived far too many nights of terror and seen far too many people break under the weight of secrets. You two need to get out of here, she said. Her voice was gentle but firm. Daniel isn't gone. He'll come looking again, and the forest won't hide you forever. Maya accepted the blanket with shaking hands, wrapping it tightly around her shoulders. She glanced at Ethan, who sat a few feet away, staring at the forest with hollow eyes. There was no anger left between them, only a heavy silence, the kind that comes after a storm leaves everything raw and exposed. He won't stop, Maya said quietly. And I don't think I can ever trust him or anyone like him. The woman nodded, eyes softening. Trust has to be rebuilt slowly or not at all. Sometimes survival is enough. She looked at both of them, then back at the forest. You need to leave, before he figures out where you went, before the evidence gets twisted, before more people get hurt. Maya rose slowly, legs stiff, heart still racing. She looked back at the cabin one last time, its windows reflecting the pale dawn like eyes watching her leave. She had wanted a weekend with love and warmth, and instead she had found betrayal, fear, and a darkness she would carry forever. Ethan followed, silent, keeping pace beside her. They moved carefully through the trees, the forest now bathed in soft, uncertain light. It was a quiet aftermath, fragile and uneasy, where nothing felt the same but survival itself was a triumph. For the first time since the weekend began, Maya felt the weight of possibility, not hope, not trust, but the stark, clear realization that she had made it through, that she was alive, that she had seen the truth and faced it. The woman watched them leave, silent, letting the dawn swallow their figures as they disappeared along the winding trail. And as the forest settled into stillness once more, it carried only echoes, of footsteps, of fear, of a weekend that had changed lives forever. Maya didn't speak. Ethan didn't speak. The world around them was quiet, almost reverent, leaving only the sound of their own ragged breathing and the fragile rhythm of survival. The past was broken, the lies had been exposed, the night had ended. And in the silence left behind, they both knew that nothing would ever be the same again.